So this is the GOAT of global snitching. He's an informant and someone who works for the government or someone who law enforcement have put in a position as a drug lord or a kingpin to catch other high-end criminals. He's a highly skilled and trained informant and dangerous. He's so well protected that the Fed sent him out of the country to protect him, but he came back to New York when he saw Monet and Zeke on TV, where it clicked to him that this is his son. So this is the reason that he gave for why he came back to New York, but he also said he was trying to step into this power vacuum. And it also makes sense why he has no real organization, why Mahoney was coming after him, because he probably snitched on him too, as well as some of the biggest heads in the games, various cartel bosses, just like Felipe Lobos. So in this video, we're going to run through Dante Spears' background, how they twisted his character, and how they foreshadowed who he really was from the very first episode of Season 2, and the clues that we may have missed. But after we've set the foundation, we're going to rewind it back to Power Season 1, and look at his connections to Felipe Lobos, Ghost, and Tommy, and how Mecca snitching had a ripple effect on Ghost and Tommy's organization, because there was a small plot hole, and we'll get to that later on in this video, so stick with it till the end. But let's break down Mecca, aka Dante Spears, the big snitch, and they really did a full 360 of his character in the space of one episode. He went from being this master manipulator of someone who'd been manipulating Kane and Monet, and having all his chess pieces in position, to basically being exposed in one episode. And that's because according to the 48 laws of power, every man, woman, no matter how powerful they are, they have a weakness and a thumbscrew, and Dante's was Mecca and Zeke. And Monet has finally realized this, because she's not planning on killing Lorenzo, she's definitely planning to double cross Mecca. But Mecca was really exposed by Tariq St. Patrick, to the point where he had no choice but to agree to give him $2 million that he was asking for. And this was Mecca going from being the one in control to someone who has his fate sealed, in my opinion, because snitches or informants, they don't last long in the world of power, and he may as well start digging his own grave. But rewinding it back to Power Book 2 Ghost, Season 2 Episode 1, the clues were there from the beginning that Mecca was a narc, because Kane called it. He said he smells like a fucking narc, and he had a feeling that Mecca was a rat from the beginning. With the fact that he killed the GTG and had these ghost-like moves, he managed to convince Kane and many of us as the audience he was this drug dealer who was looking to step into this power vacuum in New York. But for someone who was meant to be so powerful, strong, and had a lot of soldiers, he didn't have an organization, and he told Kane that he was looking for a real organization. And coming back to when Kane told him he was working with Tariq St. Patrick, it makes sense why he made this weird face when he heard his name. And it also makes sense why Mecca followed Kane, because he wanted to see Tariq St. Patrick and if he was Ghost's son. So seeing Tariq in episode 3, he would have known exactly who he was, and he would have done all his background checks beforehand. But why did he keep Kane close by and eliminate both Nuff and the chef? It's simple. He knows he couldn't kill Kane because he's Monet's son, and Monet and Zeke are his weakness. And Nuff was always someone who was running his mouth about Dante's business, and he was a liability, and every loose end or liability which risked exposing Dante had to be taken off the board, and the same goes for the chef. We all saw how the chef was doing things that Mecca wasn't happy with, and sooner or later he would have started to question why Kane was his favorite. And as a leader, you can't have someone question you, because it starts to undermine your authority. So Mecca letting go of all these situations with Lil Guap following Kane, then Tariq following him, and then the stash and the ring being stolen, the chef would have put 2 and 2 together, and eventually he would have realized that it was Kane all along. And deep down, I don't think Mecca really did give a shit about his product being stolen anyway. So unfortunately for the chef, he had to go. And all is fair in love and war, which is when people don't usually follow the rules and do something which is unfair. For example, killing the chef was unfair, because he knew it wasn't the chef who was the inside man. He knew it was Kane, but it had to be done for Mecca to stay undercover. And maybe Mahoney is someone who knows he's a snitch, and he wasn't someone who wasn't just moving into his territory, but someone who wants to wipe Mecca out for how he snitched in the past. Now it also makes sense why he had so much armor, so much protection with soldiers, cameras in his penthouse suite, and tracking devices, because he's one of the highest level of snitches, so he would have needed a heavy amount of protection at all times. And ironically, we even saw Mecca snitching on his own son in episode 9, when he planted the information about Zeke's age. This was definitely a move by Mecca, and not Lorenzo, and it was really telling because of how he was quick to offer Zeke a PR firm to get him back on track. But I also mentioned in my preview and predictions video for episode 9 that this shootout had all the vibes of the move that Kanan and Ghost used with Tommy and the Italians, and it was set up along with planting Zeke's age to force Monet and Zeke to leaning on Mecca and feeling like they needed his protection, because the moment this shootout was over, he mentioned that it was Lorenzo. So I do believe this was Mecca putting Monet and Zeke exactly where he wanted them. But let's move on and talk about Tariq finding the snitch papers and his conversation with Mecca. Now, Mecca came to Stansphere looking for his bag, thanks to his tracking device. But in this conversation, he revealed he knew his uncle Tommy and his father Ghost, which we'll get to in a moment. What didn't make sense was, how did Mecca know that Tariq killed his father? Because there are only a few characters who know that Tariq killed Ghost. There's Tasha, Tommy, Sax, McLean, Tamika, and Monet knows too, but I highly doubt any of them would say anything to Dante Spears. So this one still remains a bit of a mystery to me as to how Mecca knows that Tariq killed Ghost. So hopefully this is something that is answered in episode 10. But Tariq really did channel his inner Ghost in this scene. He told him that if he knows he killed Ghost, then snitch, because that's what Dante Spears does. He's the GOAT of global snitching, and he managed to get Mecca to agree to give him 2 million. But just before Mecca left, he gave us a bit of his backstory of how he was in the military, and they sent the most brutal of them to Georgia to help maintain the security of the Western Hemisphere. They called it the School of Americas, where he trained soldiers, and with some of them, they believed in a cause and some of them were for sale to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder at that time was Felipe Lobos, and Mecca was the one who snitched on him. So let's rewind it back to Power so we can understand exactly when this happened. Now, Ghost and Tommy, they were already working for Felipe Lobos for around 6 months, and there was always a loose end and a plot hole when it came to who snitched on Felipe Lobos' organization in LA. And I really don't believe that Mecca's character was 7 years in the planning, because these spin-offs were only announced towards the end of Power. But at the end of season 1, we had Felipe Lobos telling Ghost and Tommy that the government were tracking every single one of his moves. So let's have a look at what he said.
Well, that's good, because from now on, I need you to distribute double the amount of product. I was betrayed. My operation in California has been irretrievably compromised.
And this was Mecca's doing. We never got the answers as to who betrayed Lobos in season 1. And Mecca was the one who caused these issues for Lobos and his operation in LA. And this meant that Tommy and Ghost were left with a mountain full of product that they had to sell. And they had to expand their business. So they tried to get Vladimir on board, but he already had a connect who was Milan. So to force him, they robbed his stash and blamed the Albanians. Now this forced Vladimir into accepting Tommy and Ghost's proposition, and we saw them started to work together. And that was until Ghost cleared his entire network from beneath him, because he was done. He wanted out of the game. But Milan had other ideas. He was right under his nose this entire time, and he made Ghost his drug dealing slave for what he did to Vladimir and stealing his stash. So you see how everything was a ripple effect, from Mecca basically blowing up Felipe Lobos' organization in LA. So this is the small plot hole that I believe the writers have connected to Mecca's character. But how he knows that Ghost and Tommy were the ones who killed Lobos wasn't exactly answered, apart from telling Tariq this.
When you see your father in hell, you tell him Dante said good looking out.
So bringing it back to the timeline of Power Book 2 Ghost Season 2, it really is crunch time for Mecca, because snitches don't last long in this game, and Tariq took a photo of his snitch papers, and this will probably find its way to Monet and the Tejadas, and I can only see one outcome in episode 10, and that's with Mecca's death. It's just a matter of who pulls the trigger and how they orchestrate the plan, because it won't be easy to take someone like Mecca down. It's going to require planning, precision, and everybody coming together to take down a common enemy. And there's still also the small matter of Lorenzo finding out that Mecca is Dante Spears. So I think we all know what we can expect in episode 10. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on Mecca's connections all the way back to Power Season 1. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. And of course, if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 2 Ghost and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.